In a world rife with emotional manipulation, mastering Stoic principles empowers you to deflect unwanted influence. Discover 10 transformative tips to build resilience and reclaim your emotional autonomy. See manipulation for what it is: an attack on your mind. Manipulation is far more insidious than we often realize. It's not just a way for someone to control your actions. It's an attempt to hijack your mind and emotions. Every time someone manipulates you, they plant seeds of doubt, frustration, guilt, or fear in your mind. These seeds grow rapidly if you're not vigilant, pushing you into a reactive state where your decisions are no longer your own, but driven by the manipulator's hidden agenda. The Stoics, masters of mental resilience, recognize manipulation for what it truly is: an attack on your inner self. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The more we allow external forces, especially manipulative ones, to influence our minds, the more we lose our true selves. When someone tries to manipulate you, their goal is to color your soul with their desires, to distort your perceptions so you act not for your own benefit, but for theirs. But what makes manipulation so dangerous? It works subtly, often without you realizing it. Manipulators understand that direct confrontation leads to resistance, so they use psychological tactics that bypass your conscious defenses. They may appeal to your emotions, making you feel guilty, afraid, or obligated. Or they may create false narratives to lead you astray. Over time, these emotional triggers become automatic responses, causing you to act in ways that go against your better judgment. How do we defend against such an attack? The Stoic answer lies in cultivating awareness and detachment. To protect your mind from manipulation, you must first recognize when it is happening. This requires the ability to pause, step back, and view the situation from a distance. Epictetus, another great Stoic thinker, taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When someone tries to manipulate you, your greatest weapon is your ability to choose your response rather than fall into emotional reactivity. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine a colleague at work who subtly manipulates you by making you feel incompetent. They might say things like, "Are you sure you can handle this project? It seems really challenging." At first, these comments might seem innocent, but over time, they chip away at your confidence. You start doubting yourself, feeling anxious every time you take on a new task. This is manipulation in action, designed to make you rely on them for validation or approval. A Stoic approach to deflecting this manipulation is to recognize the tactic and detach emotionally. Instead of internalizing the doubt, you can remind yourself of your own abilities and focus on what you can control: your effort and attitude. By not allowing their words to affect your inner state, you maintain control over your mind. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Next time someone tries to manipulate your emotions, see it for what it is: an attempt to attack your mind. The more aware you are of this, the easier it becomes to detach from the manipulative forces and reclaim your mental sovereignty. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing we truly own is our mind, and protecting it from external influence is the key to maintaining inner freedom. Master the pause: how Stoic detachment breaks the cycle of emotional control. When someone attempts to manipulate you, their power lies in your immediate emotional reaction. They want to provoke an impulsive response, trapping you in a cycle of emotional control where you react before you can think. This is where the wisdom of the Stoics becomes invaluable. The art of detachment, especially in the moment of emotional provocation, is a powerful defense against manipulation. It's not about indifference, but about maintaining clarity and control over your mind when everything around you urges you to lose it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This idea forms the foundation of Stoic detachment, the ability to pause and evaluate a situation objectively before responding. In the context of manipulation, mastering the pause means not giving manipulators what they want, your unguarded emotional reaction. Think of it like this: manipulation thrives on haste. The faster you react, the less time you have to engage your rational mind, which is what the manipulator hopes for. Whether through anger, guilt, or fear, they push you to make decisions in the heat of the moment. In doing so, they take away your ability to think clearly and act in alignment with your true intentions. The Stoics understood the importance of space between stimulus and response. By pausing before reacting, you create that necessary space to reflect, to question the motives of the other person, and to regain control over your emotions. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized this idea in his meditations. The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. It is in that moment of calm, when you pause and detach from the immediate emotional charge, that true strength emerges. Let's look at an example in today's world. Imagine you receive a message from a friend or family member, and the tone of their message feels accusatory or passive-aggressive. The natural response is to react emotionally, maybe with defensiveness, anger, or even hurt. But reacting in this way only feeds the manipulative intent behind the message. The Stoic approach would be to pause. Before you respond, take a moment to reflect on the underlying message and ask yourself, what are they trying to achieve here? What emotions are they trying to provoke in me? By stepping back and asking these questions, you detach from the manipulation and regain control over the narrative. You can respond from a place of calm and reason rather than reacting emotionally. This not only disarms the manipulator, but also empowers you to remain aligned with your values. Mastering the pause doesn't just break the cycle of emotional control. It teaches you how to maintain your inner peace in the face of external turbulence. It helps you avoid getting caught up in other people's drama and manipulation tactics. The more you practice this, the stronger your emotional resilience becomes. It's also important to note that Stoic detachment isn't about suppressing your emotions or becoming a passive observer of life. Instead, it's about cultivating an inner calm that allows you to see situations as they are, without the cloud of emotional bias. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When we allow ourselves to be swept away by emotional manipulation, we often suffer not because of the situation itself, but because of the stories we create in our minds. In practical terms, mastering the pause can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths before responding to a challenging situation. It can mean taking a walk or giving yourself a few hours to think before making an important decision. This moment of detachment may seem small, but it can make all the difference in preventing manipulation and maintaining your emotional freedom. When someone tries to manipulate you, they are counting on your immediate emotional response to give them control. By mastering the pause, you break the cycle of emotional control and protect your inner self from external influence. You regain your power to act with reason and clarity, ensuring that your decisions are based on your values, not someone else's manipulative agenda. Guard your perceptions. How to see the truth beyond manipulation. Perception is reality, or so the saying goes. But in truth, perception is just the lens through which we see the world, and manipulators are skilled at distorting that lens to fit their narrative. The Stoics recognized that guarding your perceptions is crucial in deflecting emotional manipulation. By controlling how you interpret situations, you can resist the emotional pulls of those who seek to manipulate you. Epictetus emphasized this power over perception, stating, "People are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them." When someone tries to manipulate you, they're not changing reality. They're simply trying to alter your perception of it. Their goal is to make you see the world through their lens, whether by making you feel guilty for something that isn't your fault, fearful of a future that hasn't happened, or angry at someone who hasn't wronged you. Understanding this dynamic is the first step in resisting manipulation. When faced with a manipulative situation, ask yourself, whose perception am I operating under right now? Mine or someone else's? This simple question can open your eyes to the subtle ways in which manipulators try to control how you think and feel. Let's take an example. Imagine your boss at work subtly implies that your job security depends on taking on extra tasks, even if they're not part of your responsibilities. The intent behind this manipulation is to make you perceive the situation in a way that benefits them, by creating a false sense of obligation. But the reality is different. You are not obligated to do anything beyond your role unless agreed upon. Your perception of the situation determines how you react. By guarding your perception, you reclaim control. Instead of allowing your boss's words to dictate your feelings, you remind yourself of the objective truth. Your worth and your job are not determined by someone's manipulative attempts to make you do more than is required. This awareness allows you to respond assertively and set boundaries without falling prey to guilt or fear. Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote about controlling one's perceptions in his Meditations. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. This is the core of Stoic wisdom, understanding that our emotional responses come not from the external world, but from how we perceive it. If we can guard our perceptions, we can guard our emotions and actions. In the context of emotional manipulation, this means learning to recognize when someone is trying to distort your perception. Is someone trying to make you feel guilty for saying no? Are they attempting to create fear by exaggerating potential consequences? By identifying these tactics, you can detach emotionally and view the situation through the lens of logic and truth. Guarding your perceptions is not about being cynical or mistrustful of others. It's about being aware of the ways in which people, intentionally or unintentionally, may try to influence your view of reality. This awareness allows you to stay grounded in your own truth and to act in ways that align with your values, rather than being swayed by others' manipulative narratives. The Stoic shield against emotional manipulation is built on this foundation of perception. By guarding how you see the world, you protect your mind from being shaped by external forces. You create a fortress of reason and clarity where manipulators cannot reach. This gives you the power to see through their tactics and to respond with strength, rather than reacting out of emotion. Strengthen your inner core. Build unshakable self-worth to deflect emotional manipulation. At the heart of emotional manipulation lies a simple truth. Manipulators prey on insecurity. When you're unsure of your worth, it becomes easier for others to sway your emotions, convincing you to act against your best interests. Whether it's making you feel inadequate, guilty, or fearful, manipulation is most effective when it targets an internal weakness. That's why one of the most powerful defenses against emotional manipulation is building an unshakable sense of self-worth, a core of inner strength that no external force can breach. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from within. As Epictetus reminded us, know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. This means understanding your intrinsic value, what makes you who you are, and standing firm in that knowledge, regardless of what others say or do. When your self-worth is rooted in something deeper than external validation, you become much harder to manipulate. Manipulators often use subtle tactics to chip away at your sense of self. They might downplay your achievements, compare you unfavorably to others, or subtly suggest that you aren't good enough. Over time, these small jabs can create doubt, making you question your abilities, decisions, and even your worth as a person. But the Stoic mindset teaches us that our value is not determined by others' opinions. It comes from within, from our character, actions, and how we live in alignment with our values. Imagine, for example, a friend who always seems to make backhanded compliments. You did a great job on that project, but I bet it was really hard for you. On the surface, they're being supportive, but beneath that, there's an attempt to make you doubt your own competence. This is a classic form of emotional manipulation, designed to make you feel small. The Stoic response? Don't let these external opinions affect your sense of self-worth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." When you recognize that your worth isn't dependent on someone else's view of you, their manipulative tactics lose power. You see them for what they are, attempts to control your emotional state, and you deflect them by standing firm in your own value. Strengthening your inner core means actively cultivating a sense of self-worth that's immune to manipulation. This involves regular reflection on your values, accomplishments, and character. Ask yourself, what do I stand for? What are my strengths? What am I proud of? The Stoics often emphasize the importance of self-reflection as a way to maintain clarity and resilience in the face of external pressures. By consistently reminding yourself of your intrinsic worth, you create a solid foundation that manipulative tactics can't penetrate. Building unshakable self-worth also involves letting go of the need for external validation. Manipulators rely on your desire to please, to be liked, or to be approved of. They use this desire to steer you in directions that benefit them, not you. But when your self-worth comes from within, you no longer need others' approval to feel good about yourself. You become free to make decisions that align with your values, rather than decisions based on what others might think. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or dismissive of others. Stoic self-worth is about quiet confidence, a deep understanding of your own value that doesn't need to be shouted from the rooftops. It's about knowing who you are and standing firm in that knowledge, no matter what external forces try to sway you. Take, for instance, a manipulative colleague who constantly seeks to undermine your work, perhaps by taking credit for your ideas or pointing out your mistakes in front of others. If you rely on external validation, these actions could easily shake your confidence and make you question your abilities. But if you've cultivated an unshakable sense of self-worth, you recognize that your value isn't diminished by someone else's attempts to belittle you. You know your worth comes from your efforts, your integrity, and the quality of your work, regardless of how others try to frame it. By strengthening your inner core, you become a fortress against manipulation. When your self-worth is rooted in something deeper than others' opinions, manipulators lose their leverage over you. You become unshakable, able to stand firm in the face of emotional attacks and make decisions based on reason and integrity, not fear or insecurity. Set boundaries like a Stoic, defending your mental space with firmness and compassion. Emotional manipulators thrive when boundaries are weak or non-existent. They push, prod, and invade your mental and emotional space, knowing that as long as they can get you to question your limits, they can exert control over you. Setting clear, firm boundaries is one of the most effective ways to protect yourself from manipulation. The Stoics, with their emphasis on self-control and rational decision-making, understood that boundaries are not just physical, they are also mental and emotional, and defending them is key to maintaining your freedom. The first step to setting Stoic boundaries is recognizing that you are the gatekeeper of your own mind. As Epictetus wisely said, "You are not responsible for the ideas that enter your mind, but you are responsible for what you entertain." This means that while you can't always control what others say or do, you can absolutely control what you allow into your inner world. Setting boundaries is about protecting that inner world from manipulation and toxic influences. But how do you set boundaries effectively, especially when manipulators are skilled at pushing past them? The Stoic approach to boundary setting is rooted in calm firmness. You don't need to argue, justify, or defend your boundaries to those who try to cross them. Instead, you stand firm in your decisions with a quiet confidence, knowing that you are acting in accordance with your values and protecting your emotional well-being. Consider a manipulative friend or partner who constantly asks for more of your time and energy, even when you've made it clear that you have other priorities. They might guilt-trip you, saying things like, "If you really cared about me, you'd spend more time with me." This is a classic form of emotional manipulation, designed to make you question your own boundaries and give in to their demands. The Stoic response would be to calmly and assertively restate your boundary without getting caught up in their emotional ploys. For example, you might say, "I value our relationship, but I also need time for my own responsibilities. I can't meet your request right now." Notice that you're not engaging in a debate or justifying your boundary. You're simply stating it clearly and standing by it. Setting boundaries like a Stoic requires both firmness and compassion. It's important to understand that manipulators often act out of their own insecurities and fears, which is why they try to control others. By setting firm boundaries, you're not only protecting yourself, but you're also helping the other person by not enabling their manipulative behavior. You can be compassionate while still maintaining your boundaries, recognizing that the most loving thing you can do is protect your own emotional well-being. Marcus Aurelius offered profound wisdom on the subject of boundaries in his Meditations. "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In the context of emotional manipulation, this means acting decisively to protect your mental space, rather than getting drawn into endless arguments or debates with manipulators who seek to undermine your boundaries. By simply being firm and clear in your actions, you set a powerful example of how to live in alignment with your values. Setting boundaries is not about building walls between yourself and others. It's about creating healthy limits that allow for mutual respect and understanding. When manipulators try to push past those limits, The Stoic approach is to stand firm, not out of anger or defensiveness, but out of respect for yourself and your emotional health. Boundaries are an essential part of the Stoic shield against emotional manipulation. When you set them with clarity and confidence, you create a protective barrier that keeps manipulative influences out while preserving your inner peace and autonomy. By defending your mental space, you empower yourself to live in alignment with your true self, free from the control of others. Master the power of emotional detachment, a Stoic's path to freedom from manipulation. Emotional detachment, far from being cold or indifferent, is a core Stoic practice that allows you to maintain your inner peace and rational thinking in the face of manipulation. Manipulators often thrive on triggering emotional responses, whether it's anger, guilt, or anxiety, to cloud your judgment and influence your actions. The Stoics understood that emotions, while natural, must be managed carefully if we are to live a life of freedom and reason. When you master the power of emotional detachment, you create a shield that prevents manipulators from exploiting your feelings to control you. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about things or people. It means you care in a way that isn't dictated by your emotional reactions. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca taught, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Many of the emotional storms we face, especially in manipulative situations, are self-created. Manipulators plant seeds of doubt or fear, but it is our emotional attachment to the outcome that waters those seeds and lets them grow into full-blown anxieties. Emotional detachment stops this process at its root by allowing us to observe our feelings without becoming consumed by them. Picture a situation where a close family member tries to manipulate you into making a decision you're uncomfortable with, perhaps using guilt as their weapon of choice. They might say things like, "After all I've done for you, the least you can do is this one favor." In such moments, your emotional attachment to the person and the fear of letting them down can cloud your judgment, leading you to make a choice that goes against your best interests. Emotional detachment helps you separate the manipulative tactics from the reality of the situation, allowing you to respond with clarity and calmness. The Stoics believed that emotions, while natural, should not govern our actions. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is the essence of emotional detachment, the ability to choose how you respond to external stimuli, including the manipulative tactics of others. Detaching emotionally means stepping back and observing your feelings without judgment. You acknowledge that you are feeling angry, sad, or anxious, but you don't allow those emotions to dictate your actions. Instead, you take a rational approach, assessing the situation based on facts rather than feelings. This practice of detachment acts as a mental filter, preventing the emotional hooks of manipulation from sinking deep into your psyche. Let's say a manipulative coworker tries to undermine your confidence by criticizing your work in a way that feels personal. Instead of immediately reacting with anger or self-doubt, emotional detachment allows you to pause and evaluate the situation objectively. You can ask yourself, is there any truth to this criticism? What is the real intention behind these words? By removing the emotional charge from the situation, you gain the clarity to see whether the criticism is valid or simply a tactic to destabilize you. To cultivate emotional detachment, Stoics practiced daily self-reflection and meditation. By regularly examining their thoughts and feelings, they were able to gain insight into their emotional triggers and develop the mental discipline to remain calm in the face of provocations. This practice is still relevant today when faced with manipulation. Taking a moment to step back and reflect on your emotions can be the difference between reacting impulsively and responding with reason. Detaching from emotions doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring them. In fact, the Stoics were very clear that emotions should be acknowledged but not allowed to take control. As Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about these things." Emotional detachment is about changing your judgment, seeing the situation for what it truly is, rather than through the distorted lens of your feelings. In a world full of emotional manipulation, mastering detachment is a vital skill. It protects you from being swept away by the emotional turbulence that manipulators create. Instead of reacting to their provocations, you remain calm, rational, and grounded in your values. This inner stability not only shields you from manipulation, but also allows you to maintain your personal power and make decisions that are aligned with your true self. By cultivating emotional detachment, you transform yourself into an immovable force, resilient in the face of manipulation and capable of maintaining your inner peace no matter what external challenges arise. Manipulators lose their power when they can no longer control your emotional responses, and you gain the freedom to act according to reason, not the whims of others. Control the narrative. Reframe manipulative tactics through Stoic logic. Manipulators are masters at crafting narratives designed to control your perception of reality. They spin situations in ways that make you feel guilty, inadequate, or afraid, all with the goal of steering your decisions in their favor. But what if you could take control of the narrative? The Stoics believed that we always have the power to choose how we interpret events. By applying Stoic logic, you can reframe manipulative tactics and see through the distortions, transforming their narrative into one that aligns with your values and truth. The Stoics taught that the events of life are neutral. It is our interpretation of them that gives them meaning. As Epictetus famously said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them." This insight is crucial when dealing with manipulation. Manipulators rely on creating narratives that distort reality, but by practicing Stoic logic, you can break free from their influence and see things as they truly are. Imagine, for example, a situation where a manipulative partner accuses you of being selfish for wanting to spend time on your personal goals. They frame the narrative in such a way that your pursuit of self-improvement is seen as neglecting the relationship. In this distorted narrative, you're cast as the villain, and they, the victim. If you accept this framing, you might start to feel guilty and question your choices. But Stoic logic gives you the tools to reframe the situation. Rather than accepting the manipulative narrative, you can challenge it by reframing it in a way that reflects reality. You might say to yourself, "My desire to pursue my goals is not selfish. It's part of my personal growth, which is essential for a healthy relationship." By doing this, you take back control of the narrative and refuse to let the manipulator define your reality. The Stoics believed in the power of logic to cut through emotional fog and manipulation. When faced with a manipulative narrative, ask yourself, what is the true intention behind these words? Is the situation being presented accurately, or is it being framed to manipulate my emotions? By questioning the narrative, you gain clarity and prevent yourself from being swept along by the manipulator's version of reality. Consider another common manipulative tactic: gaslighting. A manipulator may try to convince you that your memory of events is flawed, creating doubt about your perception of reality. In these situations, Stoic logic becomes your shield. Rather than getting caught up in the manipulative story, you can rely on reason to ground yourself in what you know to be true. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." By focusing on rational, clear thoughts, you prevent the manipulative narrative from taking root in your mind. Stoic logic teaches us to separate the facts from the emotions attached to them. When manipulators try to craft a narrative filled with emotional triggers, guilt, fear, or shame, you can step back and analyze the situation logically. What are the facts? What is the manipulator's goal in presenting the situation this way? How can I reframe this narrative to reflect my truth? By reframing manipulative tactics, you also take control of your own emotional state. Manipulators often succeed by making you feel powerless, but when you reframe their narrative, you shift the power dynamic. Instead of being a passive recipient of their manipulation, you become an active participant in shaping your reality. In a world full of emotional manipulation, controlling the narrative is one of the most powerful tools you can have. The Stoics understood that while we can't always control external events, we can always control how we interpret them. By applying Stoic logic to manipulative situations, you protect yourself from being swayed by distorted narratives and remain anchored in your own truth. When you take control of the narrative, manipulators lose their hold over you. You become the author of your own story, free to interpret events in a way that aligns with your values and integrity. This is the essence of Stoic resilience, standing firm in your own truth, no matter how others try to distort it. Cultivate self-awareness, the key to recognizing manipulation before it strikes. Self-awareness is one of the most potent tools in the Stoic arsenal, particularly when it comes to deflecting emotional manipulation. Understanding your own thoughts, emotions, and triggers creates a solid foundation for recognizing when someone is attempting to manipulate you. The Stoics emphasized the importance of self-reflection and introspection, knowing that without self-awareness, you can easily become a pawn in someone else's game. Cultivating this awareness allows you to identify manipulation early, empowering you to respond wisely rather than react impulsively. To develop self-awareness, start with daily introspection. Take time to reflect on your thoughts and feelings, particularly in challenging situations. Ask yourself questions like, what emotions am I feeling right now? Why do I feel this way? This practice not only helps you understand your emotional landscape, but also alerts you to patterns that could signal manipulation. For example, if you consistently feel anxious or guilty after interactions with a particular person, it may be a sign that they are using manipulative tactics. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, advised, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wisdom highlights that understanding your mind and emotions provides the strength needed to navigate manipulative situations. When you recognize your own emotional responses, you become less susceptible to external manipulation. To enhance your self-awareness, consider keeping a journal. Write down your thoughts and feelings daily, focusing particularly on interactions that leave you feeling unsettled. Over time, you'll begin to notice patterns that can help you identify when someone is trying to manipulate you. Are there specific phrases or behaviors that trigger emotional responses in you? By pinpointing these triggers, you equip yourself with the knowledge needed to counteract manipulative tactics effectively. In addition to journaling, mindfulness practices can be invaluable for cultivating self-awareness. Engaging in mindfulness meditation helps you observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, allowing you to create a mental space between the stimulus, manipulation, and your response. This space is critical, as it gives you the opportunity to choose how you react rather than being swept away by immediate emotional responses. Self-awareness also enables you to clarify your values and boundaries. When you know what matters most to you, you become less likely to bend to the will of manipulators. Establishing clear personal boundaries is a critical defense against emotional manipulation. If someone tries to push you into a decision that conflicts with your values, your self-awareness will help you recognize the red flags and assertively communicate your boundaries. For example, imagine a friend who constantly seeks your approval and becomes upset when you don't agree with them. Through self-awareness, you may recognize that their emotional reactions stem from their need for validation, and you can choose to remain firm in your own opinions without feeling guilty. You can assertively express your perspective while maintaining your integrity, knowing that their feelings are not your responsibility. By cultivating self-awareness, you create a buffer against manipulation. It empowers you to respond with clarity rather than getting swept away in the emotional tide that manipulators often create. When you are aware of your triggers, feelings, and values, you can see through their tactics and protect yourself from being influenced by their emotional games. Self-awareness also allows for emotional regulation. As you become more attuned to your feelings, you can recognize when a manipulator is trying to exploit your emotional vulnerabilities. For instance, if someone uses guilt to try to sway you into a decision, your heightened self-awareness can help you notice that you're feeling guilty and remind you that this feeling is being artificially created. You can then counteract it by grounding yourself in rational thought and asserting your autonomy. The Stoics believed that self-awareness is a lifelong practice. As you develop this skill, you'll find yourself better equipped to handle emotional manipulation, fostering resilience and independence in your relationships. The more you understand yourself, the less likely you are to fall victim to the whims of others. In a world rife with manipulation, self-awareness is your shield. It empowers you to recognize and deflect emotional manipulation before it takes hold. By practicing self-reflection, mindfulness, and boundary setting, you become a master of your own emotions and decisions, free from the influence of others. Foster inner strength. Build resilience against emotional manipulation. The Stoics understood that true strength comes from within. This inner strength acts as your emotional fortress, protecting you from the arrows of manipulation. When you cultivate resilience, you develop the capacity to withstand emotional storms and maintain your composure, no matter how skilled the manipulator is at trying to sway your thoughts and feelings. Building this resilience is essential for deflecting emotional manipulation and living a life aligned with your values and principles. To foster inner strength, begin by embracing challenges as opportunities for growth. Stoicism teaches that obstacles are not merely to be endured. They are valuable experiences that can shape our character and fortitude. Instead of viewing difficult situations as threats, see them as chances to strengthen your resolve and enhance your emotional resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This perspective encourages you to approach adversity with a sense of purpose. When you encounter manipulation or emotional coercion, remind yourself that this is an opportunity to reinforce your inner strength and commitment to your values. One practical way to build resilience is through exposure to discomfort. Just as physical muscles grow stronger when challenged, so too does your emotional fortitude. Seek situations that push you out of your comfort zone, whether it's engaging in difficult conversations or taking on new responsibilities. Each time you confront discomfort, you're training your emotional muscles, making it easier to withstand future manipulative tactics. Another key aspect of inner strength is developing a growth mindset. Embrace the belief that your abilities can be cultivated over time through effort and learning. This mindset helps you view challenges, such as emotional manipulation, not as failures, but as chances to improve your coping skills. When you encounter a manipulative situation, remind yourself that this is a moment to practice your resilience and emerge stronger on the other side. In addition to fostering a growth mindset, surrounding yourself with supportive individuals can significantly enhance your inner strength. Seek out relationships with people who uplift and inspire you, creating a network of encouragement that reinforces your values. When you feel secure in your relationships, you are less susceptible to the manipulative tactics of others. Furthermore, practice self-compassion. Recognize that everyone encounters manipulation at some point, and it's okay to stumble or feel vulnerable. Embrace the Stoic understanding that what matters is not the challenge itself, but how you choose to respond to it. By being kind to yourself in difficult moments, you create a solid foundation of emotional strength that can weather manipulation. One Stoic practice that can enhance inner strength is the premeditation of evils. This technique involves imagining potential negative scenarios and how you would respond to them. By mentally rehearsing how to handle manipulation, you prepare yourself for real-life situations. This mental training helps reduce anxiety about future challenges and strengthens your resolve, enabling you to respond with clarity and confidence when manipulation arises. Resilience also means recognizing when to step back from toxic relationships or situations that continuously drain your energy. The Stoics taught that it's essential to prioritize your well-being and maintain your integrity. If a relationship is consistently undermining your self-esteem or forcing you into manipulative situations, it may be time to reevaluate its place in your life. When you cultivate inner strength, you become less vulnerable to emotional manipulation. You develop a sense of empowerment that comes from knowing your values and standing firm in them. Manipulators thrive on exploiting insecurities and doubts, but with resilience, you can remain steadfast in your decisions, unyielding to external pressures. By fostering inner strength, you arm yourself with a formidable defense against emotional manipulation. You create a mental and emotional fortress that allows you to maintain your composure and clarity in the face of adversity. In doing so, you become the architect of your own emotional landscape, choosing to stand strong and true to yourself, no matter how others may attempt to sway you. Practice assertive communication, the Stoics' tool for deflecting manipulation. Assertive communication is a vital skill in your Stoic toolkit, providing a powerful means of defending yourself against emotional manipulation. By expressing your thoughts and feelings openly and honestly, you create clear boundaries and reduce the likelihood of being swayed by the emotional tactics of others. The Stoics believed in the importance of truth and clarity in communication, recognizing that the way we express ourselves can significantly impact our relationships and emotional well-being. To practice assertive communication, start by identifying your needs and values. Understanding what is important to you allows you to communicate these needs clearly and confidently. Reflect on situations where you feel manipulated or pressured, and consider how you could express your perspective more assertively. For example, if a colleague continually seeks your approval for their decisions, leading you to feel pressured, an assertive response could be, "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I need to prioritize my own responsibilities right now. Let's find a time to discuss this later." By clearly stating your boundaries, you assert your autonomy and prevent them from manipulating your time and energy. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This principle applies to assertive communication. By choosing to express yourself clearly, you take control of the narrative in any interaction. Instead of passively allowing others to dictate the conversation, you engage with clarity and purpose, reducing the power of manipulation. When communicating assertively, use I statements to express your feelings and perspectives. For instance, instead of saying, "You make me feel guilty," try, "I feel overwhelmed when I am asked to prioritize your needs over my own." This approach focuses on your emotions rather than placing blame, which can help reduce defensiveness in the other person and facilitate a more productive conversation. It's also essential to practice active listening during conversations. This means genuinely engaging with what the other person is saying and acknowledging their feelings without necessarily agreeing with their perspective. By validating their emotions while maintaining your own boundaries, you create an environment that promotes open dialogue rather than manipulation. For example, if someone tries to guilt-trip you into attending an event you're uncomfortable with, you might say, "I understand that you want me there, and I appreciate that you care. However, I need to focus on my own commitments right now." This response acknowledges their feelings while firmly asserting your own needs. Additionally, maintain a calm and composed demeanor when practicing assertive communication. Manipulators often thrive on emotional reactions, so remaining composed can disrupt their tactics. Take a deep breath before responding to ensure your emotions do not cloud your judgment. When you approach conversations with calmness, you project confidence and reinforce your boundaries effectively. Remember that assertive communication is not about being aggressive or confrontational. Rather, it's about expressing your needs and boundaries respectfully. Stoicism teaches us to remain in control of our emotions, and assertive communication is a powerful tool for achieving that control. By expressing yourself clearly and confidently, you reinforce your values and reduce the likelihood of being manipulated. Lastly, be prepared for resistance. Manipulators often react negatively when their tactics are challenged. Stay firm in your assertiveness and don't be swayed by guilt or pressure. Remind yourself that you have the right to communicate your needs and boundaries without feeling guilty. By practicing assertive communication, you create a powerful barrier against emotional manipulation. You empower yourself to express your thoughts and feelings openly, fostering relationships built on respect and honesty. When you communicate assertively, you set the stage for healthy interactions that honor your values and autonomy, ensuring that you remain in control of your emotional landscape. Emotional manipulation can feel overwhelming, but by embracing Stoic wisdom, you can develop a powerful shield against it. These 10 tips serve as a guide to cultivate self-awareness, inner strength, and assertive communication. Remember, true resilience comes from within. By reflecting on your values and boundaries, you empower yourself to navigate life's challenges with clarity. As you practice these principles, you'll foster healthier relationships and protect your emotional well-being. Embrace your Stoic journey and let your newfound strength guide you toward lasting autonomy and peace.